As I've not used the bike since last September, I'm finding that when I warm it up every sort of week to 10 days now, give it a good warm up and get it really good and hot, I'm finding that it's beginning to spit back through the carburettor. Now I suspect one of two things, or possibly both. One is the old fuel, because that will have gone off by now, and maybe the fact that the old fuel in the float bowl may have blocked one or more jets. Despite the fact that I do tend to run the carburettor dry each time, I have actually drained it. I've put a cloth under here and I've removed the bung underneath, and I've just got a few drops out, so just to make sure that is empty before I do anything. So I'm going to be removing the carburettor from the stub, from the rubber stub, and I'm going to take the float bowl off and take the jets out, give them a good clean, and see what the results are from there. So this is your fuel supply pipe, and it connects in there, so I'm just going to undo this Jubilee clip and lift that off. So that's that side done. I'm just going to go around the other side and disconnect the cable from the top and undo it. Take the air filter off first as well. This Mikuni carburettor conversion came with the bike, and it's a Hitchcock's, so it supplied everything with jets, so the jetting should be right. I have done a plug check on it when I got the bike last year, and the plug all seems to be the right colour, etc. So I've got no reason to doubt that everything is set up and it is this problem which is causing the spitting. So the next thing, I'm just going to loosen the top. If you can see that unscrews from there. I probably won't be able to pull it out until I've moved the carburettor out of the way, because there's not much room underneath the tank, and I don't really want to remove the tank unnecessarily. Undo that. Also the head steady bolt is in the way as well. There you go. I can't pull it out at the moment, so I'm just going to undo I'm going to move the camera so as you can see the screws. So this is the stub that it fits to. I'm just going to undo this inner ring. You must make sure you undo this quite a long way, because the carburettor can't pull out otherwise. There's a sort of a ring on the inside. So I'm just going to give that a bit of a pull. Shouldn't be too difficult to come out. There we go. This will now slide out the top. If you just make a note of which way it comes out, like so, you've got the big slot this side and the angled one, or rather the slot that side, which is the guide, and inside the carburettor there's also a little slot down there. So I'm just going to lay that down to one side, and the next stage is to remove the float bowl, which I shall do on my bench in the shed. So I'm just orientating the carburettor, just making sure these two plates, I know where they are. They're on the stub end. A tiny little bit of fuel just come out of the carburettor there, even though I drained it. So I'm going to undo these 4 screws, the 4 Phillips screws, or crosshead screws. I'm going to undo them diagonally just to make sure that I don't distort it. I'm going to leave that screw just inside there, just so as I know. Let's put the other screw safely over to one side. Okay, right, now this should lift off. Just being careful, because there should be, I'm just going to tap it gently with the screwdriver to loosen it, because it's got quite a cling on there, to make sure there's nothing else. Ooh, that's quite tight. That's it, just to herd it loosen off there. Just lift it off carefully. The gasket all seems okay. So that's something I've not seen before, that the floats actually sit on pins inside the float chamber. So that's a new one on me. Last carburetors I did were Cayennes or Cayennes, however you pronounce it, off my Honda, so I'm just going to leave them on there. They obviously rest against there. I'm not going to bend them, I'm going to be very careful not to do that. So I'm just going to put that to one side. I'm just going to see exactly where, that's obviously the main jet. I think I'm going to take out the air screw. That's the needle jet in there. I'm going to take out the main jet, I think, first. So I'm just going to go and find myself a 6mm spanner. So I couldn't actually lay my hand on my 6mm open ender or ring spanner. Very, very gently undoing that. This has some sort of plate on it as well. I'm not going to discard that. They're like a little dish with another little ring inside. I'm not going to discard that. Just looking through the jet. Now that jet actually looks quite clean. What I do actually find I can use is I've got a stirrup pump, which is a cycle pump. But I've got the what I've got on the end is a ball valve inflator, which actually is very good for cleaning carburetor jets out. So I'm just going to poke it. You can't see what I'm doing here, but I'm just going to put it on the end. Good push through, just to make sure it's nice and clear, which it is. I'm just looking through. You can't see me doing that. I'm just going to pop that back in there. I'm just looking through. That's also very clear. Right, now I suspect the other jet is this one down in here, which I'm just going to see if this screwdriver fits, which it does. I'm certain this one must be going to hold everything while I tip that up, see if that falls out, which it does. Excellent. And sure enough, it appears, you can't see through there, but sure enough there does appear to be some blockage. So I'm going to just put the little pump on it again. I know I'm off view here, but I'm just holding the jet against the edge of the jet and just pushing it through. That is better. Now I'm going to do something a little bit controversial here. It always says in the books never to do this, but I've never had a problem with it, and I have been seeing other mechanics do this. Very, 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 very fine piece of wire, which I've taken from a wire brush, and I'm just going to very, very gently just push it through. I'm not going to grate it against the sides. I'm just going to push it through very gently and twist and twist. I'm just going to see it come through the other side. Not going to force it. Okay, there we are. And there are some tiny little jet holes in the side of this jet, and I'm just going to poke it through just to make sure they're clean as well. They do appear to be, but I'm just doing this just to be on the safe side. Like I say, it's not wide enough to gouge the jet itself, so I'm pretty sure that's okay. I'm just going to have a quick look down in there. That hole seems to be completely clear, so I'm going to put this jet back in. I'm just going to nip it up. I'm not actually going to over tighten it. There we go. And I'm now going to put this jet back in, also with the little dish. to be honest, apart from that little, which I believe must be a pilot jet, I've not really seen any blockages at all. I'm just going to again just nip that up. Not going to over tighten it. There we go. Just very, very gently. You can see what I'm doing. All right. I don't want any leverage on it. And I think while I'm here, I think I'll just take the air screw out and make sure that's clean as well. Now this is normally set, I believe, about 1.5 to 2 turns out. So I shall start with a base setting again when I put it all back together. That's all nice and clean. I've got a nice rag here just to be on the safe side. And I think what I'll do is I'll just put the pump again. Sorry this is out of view. Basically what I'm doing is I'm going to push this into there, and I'm going to pump the pump. In fact, I might better do it here. There you go. You can hear that flowing through. So with a bit of luck, that will do the job. So I'm going to put that back in. I would have thought there'd have been a rubber ring on there. I think I'll check with the manual later just to see whether there should be a rubber ring on there, but as there isn't at the moment, so I'm going to screw it right in till it hits the base. I'm going to turn it out half a turn, 1 turn, 1.5, and I'm going to set it at 1 3/4, I think, just as a starting point. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Everything does seem clean. I can't see any sediment or anything in there. So I'm just giving it a little bit of a wipe out in there. And I'm just going to now put the float bowl back on. So obviously I'm going to have to do it the other way up. Right, so this is going to have to go. So that's rearwards. So it's going to go on. Let me just see how that sits in. Okay, so I've just dropped that back on. I'm going to turn it back upside down again and refit the screws. So I'm going to put these two in first with a plate. The screws are just falling out. That matters. And now just generally tighten them up a little bit diagonally. They don't need to be, you don't need to heave on them. They just need to just be and again, as I just said, I'm doing them diagonally just to make sure I don't distort anything. Right, so I think it's go and refit it to the bike and see what happens then. So I'll be back there in the garage on the bike in a moment. So my next challenge is just to get the carburetor back on, which is going to be quite difficult because I'm sort of in the way of the camera. So the first thing I'm going to do is locate this. So I'm just making sure that looking down in there, there's a little bit sticking out there. That's the guide for that slot there. So I'm just going to drop it in. I'm just going to make sure that the jet itself, or the needle, does drop down into the middle of the jet. Just turn it gently till it drops into the slot. There we go, and then it'll just slide down inside. In fact, I can do this up. Start to do up the top. The cap, I assume it's a cap nut of some sort. I'm not going to pinch it right up at the moment, just in case the cable twisted a little bit. I'm just going to do it up fairly much now. The awkward bit is seeing what I'm doing here, is trying to get it back into the rubber joint. I'm just going to move the camera around a bit, just so as you can see, if you can see that just a little bit better. So that is well loose. I'm just going to wriggle this now, just to try and get it inside without distorting the rubber too much. A little bit on the fiddly side. There we go, just push it in. Make sure the carburetor is level. Okay, which it is. I'm just going to do up now the screw, just keeping the going to make sure that the clamp or Jubilee clip is made sure it's centered properly where it should be on the rubber ring. Just checking the other side to make sure it's all lined up, which it is. Now I'll just continue to tighten that. Again, I'm not going to heave on it too much because it is rubber. That seems to be nice and secure. I don't think I've forgotten anything. I'll now tighten that up the rest of the way. Again, it just needs to be sort of nipped up fairly tight. Okay. Just going to make sure this drops down. I'm going to take the cloth out now. This actually was down underneath, just underneath there, so stop it. They are where they were before, the breathers. So I'm going to put the air cleaner back on, move back around the other side and connect up to the fuel supply. And I'm going to turn the bike round, point it out in the garage and fire it up and see if there's any improvement. If it isn't, I'm pretty confident it's going to be the old fuel. So this again just fits over the edge like so. Make sure it's seated properly. Screw this back up. Right, so just double checking. Tighten that, tighten that, tighten that. Air screw was back roughly where it was, about an 1 3/4 turns out. So the fuel pipe, I know I could have removed this battery cover off, it would have been easier, but then it just sits over the top of that pipe in there, the fuel inlet pipe on the carb. Yeah, I think it's just the awkward angle. But it is going now. There we go, it's right down. So I'm just going to push the clamp back over to the end. Again, a little bit awkward to get at. It's more fiddly than anything. So hopefully you can see what I've done there. I know the pipe's making it out of focus. And I'm now just going to do up the screw again, just to tighten it up. I'm not left-handed, which makes this a little bit awkward, but I'll be in the way if I don't do it this way. Right, so that's tight. Haven't done that one. They're tight. Just double check. Right, turn the fuel on. Let the float bowl fill up, and then just make sure that it doesn't overflow, just in case I've done something wrong, like relocating the floats. But just give it a minute for that to fill up. So I'll be kick-starting the bike just to save the starter. I shall turn the choke on, just turn the engine over 4 or 5 times with a kickstart. Try and start them up. No throttle at all when you fire these up, apparently. So let's give it a go and see. I do realise that once it's warm, the carb's going to be needing to be set up again, the tick over, the idle, etc. So this is just the initial start, just to see whether that has made any difference. So here goes. The answer probably is no. Probably old fuel needed, new fuel needed.